In the dead of night, a single radio crackle shattered the silence and a voice whispered, "Ghost 7. Objective complete." The mission was off until that moment. What secrets hid behind the call that changed everything? Dive into this gripping tale of covert ops, betrayal, and redemption. Don't miss a single word. Subscribe to Silent Stories for more pulse-pounding narratives. The desert stretched endlessly under a moonless sky, the kind of dark that swallowed sound and sight, leaving only the weight of anticipation. Ghost 7, a covert operative known only by his call sign, crouched behind a jagged outcrop, his breath steady despite the mission's stakes. Operation Iron Veil was a high-stakes infiltration to neutralize Victor Krail, a rogue arms dealer whose network had destabilized half the region with a steady flow of weapons and chaos. 7's team, 6 operatives, each a shadow honed by years of clandestine work, had trained for months in a remote facility buried in the mountains. They'd run simulations until every move was instinct, memorizing Krail's habits, his guards' rotations, even the wind patterns that could carry sound across the valley. Satellite feeds, intercepted comms, and defectors' testimonies painted a clear picture. Krail's compound was vulnerable tonight, a rare lapse in his paranoia. But at 0200 hours, 7's earpiece crackled with a cold order. Abort. Return to base. No explanation, no warning. The team dispersed into the night, their vehicles kicking up sand as they vanished, leaving 7 alone with his gear and a gnawing unease. He didn't trust it. 7 had run dozens of ops, raids in war-torn cities, extractions in hostile jungles, and aborts without cause screamed compromise. Krail's compound, a fortress of concrete and steel nestled in a remote desert valley, was a target too perfect to abandon. Intel confirmed minimal guards, a skeleton crew distracted by the late hour, and a shipment of next-gen explosives, chemical warheads capable of leveling city blocks, set to move in 48 hours. Delay meant those weapons would scatter into black markets, fueling terrorist cells from Mogadishu to Manila. 7's gut churned, a warning forged by scars from past betrayals, a botched raid in Damascus where half his team didn't make it, a double-cross in Kiev that left him bleeding out in an alley. Never again. His fingers twitched near his silenced pistol, a custom 9mm with a suppressor that made death a whisper. He scanned the horizon through his rifle's thermal scope, the world reduced to shades of green and gray. Nothing moved, but the silence felt alive, predatory. At the rendezvous point, a crumbling shepherd's hut, 10 clicks out. 7 powered up his encrypted sat phone, its screen casting a faint glow. No messages, no updates. Command had gone dark, standard for a scrubbed op, but it didn't sit right. He replayed the briefing in his mind. Krail's network had ties to corrupt officials, warlords, even rogue elements within 7's own agency. The explosives were the priority, but Krail's knowledge, names, routes, buyers, was a secondary prize. 7's orders were clear, abort, but his instincts screamed louder. He checked his gear. The pistol, a combat knife with a blackened blade, 2 flashbangs, a compact recon drone, a medkit, and a signal jammer to disrupt enemy comms. The hut's walls, pocked with bullet scars from some forgotten conflict, offered little cover. If this was a setup, he was a sitting duck. 7 paced the hut, his boots grinding against the dirt floor. He pulled up the mission's digital dossier on a ruggedized tablet, scrolling through satellite imagery and intercepted chatter. Something was off. Gaps in the guard rotations, a delivery truck unaccounted for in the logs. He cross-checked the data against older intel, spotting a pattern. Krail's shipments always moved after a quiet night, as if he knew when eyes were off him. Was command compromised? 7's mind raced, weighing the risks of going rogue. He'd defied orders before, but never on a mission this critical. The sat phone stayed silent, mocking him with its blank screen. The radio on his belt hissed to life. "Ghost 7, this is Raven." His handler's voice, sharp and urgent, cut through the silence. Raven, a woman whose real name he'd never know, was his only link to command. Her tone betrayed a rare crack in her composure. "New intel. Krail's moving the shipment tonight. You're greenlit. Solo op. In and out. Objective, neutralize the target. Secure the explosives." "Confirm." 7's pulse quickened. "Solo?" The team was already en route to exfil, scattered across the desert in separate vehicles to avoid detection. He was alone, outgunned, and out of time. "Confirmed," he said, his voice steady despite the odds. The radio went dead, leaving only the wind's low moan and the weight of his decision. 7 moved fast, his gear light but lethal. The compound was 5 clicks north, a maze of walls and watchtowers surrounded by dunes that could betray his steps. He sprinted across the sand, his boots sinking slightly, each movement calculated to avoid patrols. His drone hummed above, its feed streaming to a wrist-mounted display. 2 guards at the south gate, armed with AKs, their stances sloppy, distracted by a shared cigarette and a muttered conversation in a language 7 didn't catch. Easy prey. He slipped closer, his knife glinting in the starlight as he took the first guard down with a silent thrust to the throat. The second turned, mouth opening, but 7's pistol coughed twice, around through the temple. Both crumpled, their blood soaking into the sand. He dragged the bodies into the shadows, checking the drone feed. Clear for now. Inside the compound, the air was thick with the smell of oil, metal, and something acrid chemicals, maybe the explosives' precursors. Crates lined the walls, stamped with Cyrillic script, Crail's signature. 7's drone mapped the layout, barracks to the left, armory to the right, a central bunker where Crail was holed up. The explosives were likely there, wired and ready. He moved like a wraith, avoiding tripwires and motion sensors memorized from the intel. A keypad barred a side entrance, his portable decryptor word cracking the code in seconds. The door hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with rusted pipes. He was in, but the hairs on his neck stood up. The intel said minimal resistance, yet the compound buzzed with activity, distant voices, the clank of metal, footsteps echoing. Too many for a skeleton crew. 7's drone picked up heat signatures, at least a dozen men, armed and converging. A trap? He didn't have time to wonder. A guard rounded the corner, eyes widening as he spotted 7. The operative's pistol snapped up, 2 shots, center mass. The man dropped, his rifle clattering, but the gunfire wasn't silent enough. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. Footsteps pounded, closing in from multiple directions. 7 cursed, sprinting for the bunker, his drone scouting ahead. He dodged a patrol, slipping into a maintenance shaft to avoid detection. The shaft was tight, claustrophobic, its walls slick with condensation. It led to the bunker's outer wall, where he emerged, planting a micro-explosive charge on the steel door. 10 seconds. He took cover as the blast warped the lock, just enough to kick it open. Voices shouted behind him, reinforcements closing fast. 7 slipped inside, the door slamming shut, buying him moments. The bunker was a fortress within a fortress, its steel door reinforced with a biometric lock that mocked 7's decryptor. Crail's paranoia ran deep. Inside, the air was cooler, sterile, the hum of generators vibrating through the concrete floor. Victor Crail stood behind a desk, a wiry man with cold, pale eyes and a smirk that said he'd been expecting company. "Ghost 7, he drawled, his Eastern European accent thick with menace. "You're persistent." 2 bodyguards flanked him, their submachine guns trained on 7, fingers hovering over triggers. The explosives were there, crates stacked against the wall, wired with blinking detonators, their red lights pulsing like heartbeats. One wrong move and the compound would be a crater, taking 7 with it. 7's rifle was raised, scope locked on Crail's chest. "Hands up, Crail. This ends now." Crail laughed, a dry, humorless sound that echoed in the bunker's confines. "You think you're in control? Your command sold you out. Why do you think your team was pulled?" 7's grip tightened, his mind flashing to the abort order, Raven's sudden call, the silence from command. Crail gestured to a monitor on the desk, showing grainy footage of 7's team at the rendezvous point, ambushed, pinned down by mercenaries in black tactical gear, muzzle flashes lighting the night. "They're dead because of you," Crail said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Keep chasing ghosts and you'll join them." The words cut deep, but 7's training kept his face blank. He trusted Raven, trusted command, despite the scars of past betrayals, a mole in Istanbul, a leaked op in Bogota. Was this another? He couldn't dwell on it. The bodyguards twitched, their eyes darting to Crail for a signal. 7 acted first, rolling a flash bang across the floor. It erupted in blinding light and sound, disorienting the guards. He dove left, firing as he moved, his rifle spitting suppressed rounds. 1 bodyguard dropped, blood spraying across the crates, staining the Cyrillic stamps. The other returned fire, bullets chewing the wall where 7 had stood. 7 rolled, his knife flashing, burying it in the second guard's thigh. The man screamed, collapsing, and 7 finished him with a shot to the head, the sound muffled but not silent. Crail was gone. A hidden panel in the wall hung open, a bolt hole, its edges barely visible. 7 pursued, his drone scouting the narrow tunnel ahead, lined with pipes and flickering fluorescent lights. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rust and earth. Crail was fast, his footsteps echoing, but 7 was faster, driven by duty and a growing fury. He caught up as the dealer reached a locked hatch, fumbling with a keycard, his hands shaking. Crail spun, a pistol in hand, but 7 was on him, disarming him with a brutal strike to the wrist. The gun skittered across the floor, lost in the shadows. 7 pinned Crail, his forearm crushing the dealer's windpipe against the cold metal wall. "Who sold me out?" he growled, his voice low, dangerous. Crail choked out a laugh, defiant even now. "You're a tool, 7. Tools get used." 7 pressed harder, Crail's face reddening, but a distant explosion rocked the tunnel, dust raining from the ceiling. The crates. They've been ringed to blow a failsafe. 7 dragged Crail to his feet, forcing him toward the hatch. If the explosives were gone, the mission was a bust, but Crail's intel might salvage something: names, accounts, the mole. They emerged into the desert, the compound behind them erupting in flames, a fireball lighting the night sky, heat washing over them. 7's radio crackled. "Ghost 7, report." It was Raven, her voice steady but laced with something new, worry, maybe guilt. "Objective compromised. Crail's in custody. Team status?" A pause, too long. "Unknown," she said. "Exfil now. Coordinates incoming." 7 didn't trust her, not anymore. He bound Crail's wrists with zip ties, tight enough to bruise, and started moving, the dealer stumbling beside him. The desert was alive with threats, mercenaries, drones, or worse, drawn by the explosion. His drone picked up movement. 3 vehicles, armored jeeps with mounted machine guns, closing fast, their headlights slicing through the dark. 7 checked his ammo, 2 mags for the pistol, 1 for the rifle. Not enough for a stand-up fight. He scanned the terrain, spotting a narrow ravine, its walls steep and defensible. He dragged Crail into it, setting up behind a boulder, the drone relaying the enemy's numbers: 12 men, heavily armed, moving with tactical precision. 7 rigged a second tripwire, using a spare grenade from his pack. The first jeep hit it, the blast flipping the vehicle into a fireball, screams echoing as metal twisted. The other jeep swerved, but the mercenaries were already dismounting, fanning out to flank him. 7 needed to hold them off until the chopper arrived and time was bleeding out. The exfil point was a dry riverbed, marked by a single flare glowing red in the dark, its light flickering against the sand. 7's drone showed the jeeps gaining, their machine guns spitting rounds that kicked up dust clouds. Crail was slowing him down, muttering about deals, immunity, even offering 7 a cut of his profits. The dealer's arrogance was unshaken, as if he believed rescue was coming. 7 ignored him, his focus on survival. The flare meant a chopper was inbound, but it wouldn't wait long. Standard protocol was a 90-second window. He checked his watch, 5 minutes until pickup. The jeeps were closer, their engines roaring like predators on the hunt. 7 rigged another trap, using his last flash bang across the ravine's mouth. The second jeep hit it, the blast shattering its windshield, forcing it to veer into a dune. The third jeep stopped, mercenaries pouring out, their silhouettes moving with purpose. Gunfire erupted, bullets tearing through the air, kicking up sand around 7's position. He returned fire, his rifle's suppressor muffling the shots, dropping 2 mercenaries with precise headshots. More came, fanning out to flank him, their radios crackling with orders in a language he didn't recognize. Crail, sensing weakness, tried to bolt, twisting free of 7's grip. The operative tackled him, slamming his face into the dirt, the dealer's nose crunching. "Move again, you're dead," 7 hissed, his knife pressed to Crail's throat, drawing a thin line of blood. The chopper's thrum grew louder, its silhouette cresting the horizon, blades cutting the air. 7 fired a flare, its green arc signaling his position. The mercenaries were closing, their gunfire relentless, pinning him down behind the boulder. His ammo was critical, 10 rounds in the rifle, a handful in the pistol. The chopper touched down, its door gunner laying down suppressive fire, tracer rounds streaking through the night, forcing the mercenaries to scatter. 7 hauled Crail aboard, diving in as bullets pinged off the hull, sparking against the metal. The chopper lifted, banking hard to avoid a rocket streaking from below, its trail glowing orange in the dark. 7 strapped in, his eyes locked on Crail, who was smirking again, blood trickling from his nose, staining his shirt. "You think this is over?" the dealer said, his voice hoarse but smug. "Your people wanted me free. Why do you think the op was called off?" 7 didn't answer. He was replaying every detail, the abort order, Raven's sudden call, the ambush on his team. The puzzle was incomplete, but the pieces pointed to betrayal high up. At the safe house, a concrete bunker in a neighboring country, Seven interrogated Crail. The dealer was cagey, dropping hints about a mole in command, someone with enough pull to scrub ops and redirect funds. Check the money, Crail said, his eyes glinting. Follow the accounts. You'll see. Seven's sat phone pinged, new orders. Deliver Crail to a black site, no questions. But Seven wasn't done. He hacked into the mission logs using a burner laptop, cross-referencing financials with Crail's intel. A shell company linked to the dealer had wired millions to an account tied to Colonel Marrow, a senior officer in Seven's chain of command. The mole. Seven's blood ran cold. Marrow had overseen Iron Veil, handpicked the team, controlled the briefings. The abort order, the ambush, it all led back to him. Seven dug deeper, tracing the money through offshore accounts in the Caymans, Cyprus, and Dubai. Marrow's betrayal wasn't just greed. It was a system, years of selling secrets to Crail and others, warlords, cartels, even rival agencies. Seven memorized the evidence, then smashed the laptop, ensuring no trace remained. The safe house wasn't secure anymore. Drones circled the region, their thermal signatures faint but persistent on his drone's feed. Encrypted chatter on intercepted channels labeled him rogue, a traitor. Seven moved Crail to a secondary location, an abandoned warehouse in a border town, its walls crumbling but defensible. Crail was his leverage, the key to exposing Marrow, but time was running out. Seven went dark, cutting contact with Raven and Command. He fortified the warehouse, rigging cameras, tripwires, and motion sensors scavenged from his gear. Crail was bound in a back room, his smugness fading as days passed without rescue. His wrists raw from the zip ties. Seven worked relentlessly, using Crail's intel to map the mole's network. Marrow had allies, corrupt officers, private contractors, a tech specialist who doctored the mission logs to cover his tracks. Seven needed undeniable proof, something that would force Command to act. He set a trap, leaking his location to Marrow through a compromised channel, baiting him to send a kill team. When they came, 8 operatives, heavily armed, moving like a spec ops unit. Seven was ready. The warehouse became a battlefield. Seven had rigged explosives at key entry points, turning doorways into death traps. He used the cameras to track the team, picking them off in choke points with precise shots from the shadows. The fight was brutal, a blur of gunfire, smoke, and blood. Seven took wounds, a graze to the shoulder that bled through his jacket, a knife slash to the ribs that burned with every breath, but he dropped the team one by one, their bodies piling up in the dark, their radios going silent. Marrow arrived last, expecting a cleanup, his arrogance mirroring Crail's. Instead, he found Seven, bloodied but standing, his pistol aimed at Marrow's chest, the dealer bound in the corner. Marrow tried to talk, offering deals, excuses, claiming he was protecting the agency from its own bureaucracy, redirecting funds to better causes. Seven didn't listen. He recorded the confession, every damning word, using a hidden device in his gear. "You sold us out," Seven said, his voice low, controlled, the pain in his ribs secondary to his focus. "For what? Money? Power?" Marrow's eyes darted, searching for an out, but the warehouse was a tomb. Seven sent the recording to Raven's secure line, encrypted and untraceable. If she was clean, she'd act. If not, he'd hunt her next. He left Marrow alive, barely, zip-tied to a pipe, his face pale with shock. Crail was handed off to a trusted contact, a former operative who'd gone off-grid years ago, living outside the agency's reach. The desert was quiet again, the mission over, but not the war. Seven's radio lit up one last time as he slipped into the night, his wounds bandaged but aching. "Ghost 7. Objective complete." It was Raven, her voice steady but strained, carrying the weight of the confession she'd just received. "Stand down. You're clear." Seven didn't respond. He vanished into the shadows, a ghost once more, knowing the truth was out, but the shadows never stopped chasing. Marrow's network was exposed, Crail's empire crippled, but the cost was brutal, his team, his trust, maybe his future. The desert stretched before him, endless and unforgiving, and Seven walked on, ready for whatever came next, his silhouette fading into the night.